Buongiorno, buon pomeriggio, e buonasera, Lazio world. Welcome to our instant reaction pod. Little stoppage time here, reviewing Lazio's Champions League fixture versus Feyenoord. Big 1-0 victory. I am your host, Sean McIntosh, joined, as always, by Caleb. Caleb, what a result. Absolutely must win for us. Got a job done. How are you feeling, sir?
Oh man, I feel incredible. Feel definitely really more relief than anything. My goodness. Up until that first goal, I was definitely the announcers mentioned that the air was a little bit kind of nervous. And I also felt that way. And so a relief and ecstatic. We got us one win, one must win down, one more to go later in the week.
Well, you could feel it just from sitting on our couches in Charlotte, North Carolina, in the United States, thousands of miles from Stadio Olimpico.
Yeah.
You could feel the tenseness. You could feel the nerves. You understood, obviously, a massive moment for their Champions League hopes to remain in this competition and have any chance of advancing out of a tough group. And they got a job done. And regardless of competition, 3 points is always 3 points, but in Champions League, that much sweeter. So give me your 3 words or less to describe this one.
You kind of just said them. Job done. We had to win this. We dug deep for it. It was one of those games where like we either had to do it or we didn't, and we did. And it's that simple. And it comes down, and it's a collective effort. And we can go into the analysis of the game later on, but mentally, that's massive for the team. That's where it all starts, right? It all starts mentally with these sorts of games. Your tactics may be like on point. You may be playing at home, but if if you don't have the mentality of like, we need to get this done no matter what, you may not come out with the result, and we did.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have my 3 words as guts and grinta. This was all about the grit, the mentality. I think you said it perfectly. You can have the perfect tactics. You can have the right lineup. But in a game as tense, a game as meaningful as a Champions League fixture, if you don't go into it with the right mentality to settle yourself and to understand what is at hand and the job that needs to be done and putting forth an effort to ensure that you get that job done, none of it matters. And so for me, it was all about the guts and the grit that this team displayed. I mean, we'll jump right in just to quickly go over what happened in this match.
Yeah.
Right from the jump. And the first half wasn't a great first half, but there were signs for me immediately, 1 minute mark, that just little signs of just the mentality. Zaccagni right away makes a bold run, creates pressure, is fouled, brought down, forcing a yellow, not even a minute into the match. We've talked about Zaccagni needing to step up, and immediately has a nice little impact that told me, all right, the boys came to play a little bit. They're awake. 7 minutes in, Felipe has a nice little attack, plays a ball in the box. There's a possible foul, no call. Again, just signs of life. Nothing that created opportunities that you're going to write home about, but just nice effort. I thought the first 10 minutes in particular, there was great pressure.
Yeah.
I thought the press was strong, very similar to the Bologna match where I thought they came out with good energy and the press was there. And, we just didn't create a ton out of it. Provedel in the 31st minute makes a big save on Jimenez. And then 46th minute, stoppage time in the first half. And who else but our king, Ciro Immobile, with a classic Ciro moment that we've seen time and time again to put his 200th goal with this club in the back of the net
Mm.
from a fantastic pass and read from Felipe Anderson. Cheeto just
Yep.
tiptoeing that offside line, as he so often does, makes that read, makes the run, dribbles past the keeper, finds himself in maybe a tight angle where you might have thought he drifted a little bit too far wide,
Yeah.
but it's Cheeto, and Cheeto at his best, and that's what he was in that moment. Bags the goal, puts us up 1-0, and from that moment, we had some moments, no grand again opportunities, but we go on to hang on for dear life. Looking at the stats for this one, shots, 12 shots from Feyenoord, 3 on target, 9 shots from Lazio. Want to guess how many on target?
One.
The one, the
Yeah.
one from
Yeah.
the man himself. And
That's
so that's
crazy.
all it took, was that one shot from Ciro Immobile. The XGs were pretty tight. Big chances missed. Both had big chances. The difference here is Lazio finished theirs, and Feyenoord had one big chance missed. And aside from that, they hung on for dear life and played a very organized match up until the final whistle. So where do you think this one was won? Because you look at the stats, you look at some of the opportunities in the first half. I was a little bit nervy. Jimenez, you heard his name called a few times. There
Mhm.
was some glancing headers that went wide by an inch or two, and Provedel made a couple saves that it maybe wasn't looking great, and you expected the worst. But at the end of the day, they got it done. Where'd you see us ultimately find our way to victory?
I think the personnel changes, just the subtle little lineup changes, made the difference in this game. We noticed, we've praised Tati Castellanos about his performances and his effort, and I think actually, yeah, Cheeto scored the goal, but when Cheeto's hustling, the team tends to follow that. You know what I'm saying? Like Tati hustles every single match he's in, but he doesn't drive the same sort of effort from his team because he's a new player. He's a new guy in the team. He's known these guys for a few months. But when you see your captain that you've been playing with, most of these guys have been playing with him for 3-5 years now. You look at him doing that, then you're inspired. You want to follow your captain, right? And I think that starting Cheeto up top, yes, it made the big difference in the goal, but really I think it made a bigger difference mentality wise because again, this is not to like trash on Tati. It just he doesn't have the same sort of weight on the field in terms of a presence, in terms of leadership that someone like the greatest striker in club's history. It's different. It's very different, and I think that right there really made the difference in the day because it wasn't our tactics. We were okay, nothing special. It wasn't that we were just lights out in terms of the attack. Nothing. I mean, our defense wasn't even like super locked down either because they had chances, but we kept coming back. We kept fighting. We never gave up with the energy, and I think that made the ultimate difference.
Well, Caleb, I swear you're looking off of my notes, because I had the same thing. I wrote mentality and good subs. So your point on Cheeto is so spot on. One of the undervalued pieces from Cheeto Immobile, whether or not he's scoring goals, he provides a ton. And his leadership on the pitch, his effort, his hustle, it forces everybody around him to give the same. And while this team has been incredibly frustrating so many times this season, this team has had moments of blackouts, in years past where they've been caught sleeping, they've given games away. We've questioned the mentality, and I want to make it clear that this team has shown tremendous mentality this season to pull themselves up from really tough moments. I don't think the mentality with this team is the issue. It's
Mm.
there's certainly some tactical questions. The offense isn't clicking in the right ways. There's some adjustments that need to be made. But from a mentality, it takes something for them to be able to come back and have big moments at Celtic Park against Atletico in the dying minutes, against Fiorentina,
Yeah.
coming up big when it's needed, and in a match against Feyenoord in Champions League when all the pressure was on that home side. Feyenoord could just come to play,
Mm.
and and they got a job done. They really banded together, grinded this one out, didn't make any mistakes, and you'll love that because that's the hardest thing to figure out. If we can figure some of these things out tactically,
Mhm.
and then the kudos for Sadi is the substitutions today. I thought it did a couple things. One, kept our squad fresh for the big match on Sunday looming, and it ensured that energy level was maintained throughout the full 90. I
Yeah.
mean, Gendouzi was a man on a mission. Again, covering ground. You saw him all the way in Pedro's position out wide at the end of the match. You saw
Right.
him, playing the right wing position next to Felipe. You saw him in the central pitch. So, that effort, Novella, again, being a pest and finding ways to make tackles. And when he wasn't making tackles, he was committing smart fouls. And I just thought that mentality is what's going to keep this side alive in Champions League, what's going to give us hope in Serie A if
Yeah.
they can just figure out a couple pieces. So, from an individual standpoint, who's your man of the match?
I'm going to actually go with someone who I haven't named as a man of the match all year long, and I'm going to go with Providel. And I think that he was a big presence in the box in general. And he came up with some, even if it wasn't a save, he claimed everything in the box. He made little to no mistakes. Came up with some crucial saves when his defense, allowed some opportunities. And Cheeto would be a very clear and obvious choice. I wanted to stray away from him just in this case because I did want to give credit to Providel in this game because he was like near perfect and he was a big part of a clean sheet, which we have struggled with this season. Providel has been, not saying he's been excellent this year, but he's been kind of screwed over by his team's defense, and we've struggled to keep clean sheets. And he was absolutely vital part of our clean sheet. And so for that reason, it goes to Providel for me.
Yeah, Providel, obviously, the clean sheet doesn't happen without big moments from him. But
Yeah.
I'm going to go with the easy answer. And for me, it is Ciro Immobile.
Yeah.
We said what his effort level does, but this team has struggled to score goals.
Mm-hmm.
Struggled. Heard the
To
announcer.
create.
Yeah, to create. You're right. This point last year, I think we had 16 goals. And coming into this match, we only had 6 at the same
Wow.
point in the season. So it's a shell of the offense that we were accustomed to last year and the year prior under Sadi. So we know the opportunities don't come, and when those rare opportunities show up, you need your striker or whoever it is on the ball to take advantage. And my hope is that this brings some life. It brings a little bit of confidence in
Yeah.
the side. And because Cheeto took that moment, made something out of it, finished it, ultimately that's what got the job done.
Yeah,
And in
absolutely.
the last pod, I called for our star players to step up because we can bitch and moan about Sadi.
Mm,
Questions need to be asked, but
mm-hmm.
the individual stars on this team have failed to step up and
Yeah.
have all regressed. And so
Yeah.
that was one moment, and that's all it takes is one moment. So for me, without a question, it was Ciro Immobile, and if we can get him to do more of that, if we can find him in space making those runs, then we're gonna see a side that can start producing again.
Yeah.
Uh, on the other end, I'm gonna step back and let you answer this because I have never had a harder time picking a bidone of the match. So I hope
Mm,
you have one because I struggled. I thought it really took a team effort, and
I did.
as as I was trying to be critical of players, they would then step up and come up with a big tackle.
Yeah.
And you come into a match like this and you think, all right, maybe Hisai is going to be the one
Mm.
to get blown away, and played positionally really strong, come up with a couple big tackles. You think, Patrick had one moment that yeah, I shook my head at, where it was an attempted clearance, and it honestly looked like he had passed the ball
Mhm.
directly to a Feyenoord player in the box. But aside from that, a really strong match from him. You know, Lazio had a couple turnovers here and there, and then he goes on to just again find his place all over the pitch. So
Everywhere,
it was
yeah.
really tough for me to single one guy out that was the poorest performer. So I'm going to take a seat and let you give us your bidone.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be unfair to name one particular person out in this situation. If I had to choose, and this is like really nitpicking here, um, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with Vecino, and this is not to say that he played bad. Again, this is actually a credit to him because Vecino has been our best midfielder this year. I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to say that right now. If not our most consistent, at the very least.
Yeah.
And I think he's had some really impactful performances. Like I think the substitutes that he's been incredibly impactful. I thought he was a bit silent in this game. I thought he was a bit invisible in this game, and which is not necessarily a bad thing as a six. It means you're not like screwing up. But I do think compared to other performances this year, it was a little more like it was a little more of a not like a sleeper performance, but it was more of like a um, not as impactful as he's been. That's simple. And I think the if you look on some of the sites as well, different sites that do the ratings, do the stats, I looked over quite a few because I struggled as well. And I was just looking at like, man, like, is there any kind of objective way we can look at that? Like, look who objectively was one of the more worst like players on the team. And across the three that I looked at, it had him as one of the lower rated ones. And
Yeah, I
again,
think I
yeah,
think it's again, it was so tough. I think back to the 22nd minute, Vecino wins a ball back from a Feyenoord attack,
yep,
does well to win it back, and then he's about 40 plus yards out and just decides to have a crack at it and just
yeah.
blasts it
Oh my gosh, that was frustrating.
wide. And
Yes.
again, for a side that fails to create opportunities when you win the ball back, just that's not the position on the pitch that you want him to be taking a shot. And so it's
Especially
moments like that, obviously tough because he earns a yellow in this one. So from accumulation, he's going to be missing the next match, which
Mhm.
is pivotal. So that's disappointing from him. But yeah, I struggled. I thought, this was the one match. I thought, Luis Alberto has been the victim of my bidone for probably more than anybody this season. And while he didn't have a fantastic offensive performance and didn't put his stamp, I thought his corners were better today, and he hustled. I mean, he
Did,
he
yeah.
was he was running back, and it just tough to be disappointed with anybody as an individual.
Yeah.
Obviously, plenty of room for improvement. Most of which is where our goals are coming from. Prior to the Cheeto goal, I mean, I wrote down when and how are we ever going to score a goal from run of play.
Oh my goodness, tell me about it.
What changes do you think, Caleb, we can make to start just creating some opportunities?
This is where we got to look at um, the sort of so we know Sadi, who's been coaching for a while here, and just in general has quite a long career so far. We've known throughout all his entire teams, Sadi's teams have always been reliant on individual expression in the final third. He's one of these coaches that really harps on build up, really harps on, okay, I'm going to help you guys get to the final third. But once you are there, yes, you may have some sort of passages of play. I'm not really seeing much of those at all, except maybe an overlap is the extent of that right now from a fullback. But Saudi's system is just so reliant on individual brilliance from players. And when your players are clicking, I look at the time when he was at Chelsea. Yeah, Hazard was having he had the best season of his career under Sadi because Sadi put him in positions to thrive, but he still had to do it himself, right? Hazard still had to show up in games. He still had to create those opportunities. He still had to score those goals, but he has immense quality and was able to do it. Now you come into a situation where you said it yourself earlier, we're starting to regress at our key players. And now look at our wingers. Felipe got the assist today. Other than that, didn't create much. Sakanye didn't create much. And so I look at the team, and for me, there's just that disconnect, right? Where Saudi's system needs this, but we happen to take this dip at the same time. And that right there, I don't know how you fix that unless you really start drilling down on attacking sort of sequences of play, which haven't really been a Saudi thing. It's much more fluid. It's much more let the individual creativity flow. But when it's not flowing, you're left with a really lifeless attack.
Yeah, and that's what we've had. Before we take a quick look at the weekend's match to come, just a brief overview of what Group E looks like at the moment. Atletico Madrid in the top spot of our group with 8 points. Lazio sitting in second, which would see them advance at 7. But Feyenoord right behind in third place with 6 points. And Celtic all but out of this one, sitting at 1 point. So it's a good group. It's a group that's going to be fighting until the very last match and potentially see itself decided by some tiebreakers, which unfortunately for us in Feyenoord, having lost to them 3-1 in that first match would concede the tiebreaker to Feyenoord. So we've got to come up with some results in our next two. Next Champions League fixture is November 28th against Celtic. That is going to be in Rome. So we do have the fortune of playing in Stadio Olimpico, and then we'll see this one close out against Atleti in Spain. And that one takes place on December 13th. So it's going to be a fight to the end, but it's good that we are still in it, and it has a ton of implications for us. Obviously, the biggest of which is the financial implications for a club like Lazio advancing out of the group, earning that extra pot of cash from UEFA allows us to potentially do some things in the upcoming windows. And so but it means very little in terms of the long term if we don't consistently find ourselves in Champions League and we resume our play in Serie A, which is massive for us to find some results to climb back up in the table to hopefully see ourselves in and around a top 4 spot. But it commences with none other than the Derby della Capitale this Sunday. So huge match. We sit really tight in the table. We talk about our offensive woes, and Roma is not a team to throw a ton of offensive haymakers, and they play a pretty grim style of football. One that is seeing some fortunate results lately for them. But what do you think? Let's talk about the lineup. What do you want to see heading into this match against Roma?
I think the front three choose themselves, right? No surprises there. Ciro, Zaccagni, Felipe. Obviously, really, the one that rotates and sort of the most dynamic and volatile is the midfield, right? As we found. The defense, I think you go with either an identical lineup, which I thought was great. I thought the team played really well. I thought the back line was good. That's a second game where you want the defense playing together as much as possible. You want that coherency, particularly there. As for midfield, I still really, and I know you and I have talked about it, I still really want to see Guendouzi Kamada together as the eights. I'm dying to see that duo. We saw what, Kamada had a decent game, it was okay, nothing crazy, but a solid, tight game. It was a tighty game. But we've seen Guendouzi has been really good recently, and I would love to also see what they can do together. And the question then becomes, do you throw two eights who are new to this derby out there? Maybe not, probably not. Most people would say, I'm okay with it. And if that's the case, then Alberto plays again, which he's really. But you had to sub him out early. Like he's getting so many
Yeah,
minutes.
even today, right? He had to be bandaged up. He took a knock.
Yes.
I thought, he showed a lot of guts continuing to play and fight, but we keep running him into the ground, then he's not going to make it through the season.
And I'm thinking, and when I look at Roma, this is a transition counterattacking team. Personally, give me a Guendouzi Vecino 8 duo with Rela behind, or give me a Kamada Guendouzi Vecino 3, right? So I personally, my two options would be Vecino, a Guendouzi as the 8 with Ravella behind, or Kamada Guendouzi with Vecino as a 6. One of those two options I'd be happy with. I would like to see Alberto get a break. And look, this is likely going to be a game where we're going to be hunting for that goal. We're just constantly going to be prowling for that goal in their half. Okay, 60th minute comes in, throw in Alberto against a tired Roma side. Let him cook, right? And I think he would actually be more impactful that way than somebody just having to, cover in transition. You know what I'm saying? So that's my sort of preference when it comes to the team.
Yeah, Ciro Immobile has to be leading the line.
Yeah.
We talked about this the last time he found a goal that we wanted to see him start the next match, and I don't believe he did, which was a miss, because we need to take advantage of some positivity from him and get him into a nice form and a run. And so it has to be Ciro Immobile. He's come up big in the derby so many times, so that's without a question. He needs to be leading the line. The wingers, you can keep those the same as you said. The midfield, interesting. I'll start with the defense. Who'd have thunk it? Patrick holding down that center back position, but credit where credit is due. You can't make the change. He's playing well.
Yep.
If he can just limit some of those big errors and moments, that we've been fortunate that they haven't killed us, but in the derby, it's typically decided by one play.
Yeah.
Ibanez has been the man on the Roma
I
side.
was just about to say that.
Miss that man dearly. So let's just hope Patrick isn't playing that role on Sunday. But I think from that side of things, you keep it the same. Hisai today showed great veteran leadership, played really smart. Lazzari now into a nice run. Right, he went invisible where Sadi didn't seem to trust him. Seemed like the odd man out. Now he's gotten a few matches under his belt. I think it provides something for us. He's kept to his defensive duties. Now that midfield, I don't see Sadi benching Luis Alberto. There's just he's relied on him, and when you look at our fixtures after this match, we've got a couple weeks off. We go from November 12th to our next match being on the 25th against Salernitana. So that's where the rest is going to come, I would imagine. Even against Salernitana, maybe that's where we sit Luis, allow him to rest up.
Yeah.
So I see it. It's interesting because we started the season playing Luis Alberto and Kamada, and Sadi didn't like it. Produced. I mean, our attack was better than it is now. So from an attacking phase, we saw some results and we were a little bit more lively. But I don't think Sadi. He always talked about the lack of balance on the defensive side. And he had those same gripes when it was Luis Alberto and Milinkovic-Savic, and it was a little head scratching. Those two will figure it out. And I feel the same with Kamada. And you and I have spoken at length about the underrated value of Kamada as as his defensive side of things. So, I think I'm perfectly fine. I'm excited to see a player like Rovella in his first derby, but also know that moment is massive. So perhaps you do put a Cataldi who understands the derby, has played in them. He's from Rome. You're going to have a guy that just gives his absolute all for this one. So I'd be fine with Cataldi seeing that regista position as well. So, absolutely massive. And Caleb, we're gonna do something different on Sunday for this match, right? I
We
think we're
are.
excited. We're gonna be doing a little watch along with everybody. So on Sunday we'll be watching the match, and we'll be on here live to share immediate reactions. Not it's not going to be a stoppage time post match reactions. We may record something immediately after the match, but we're going to be watching along live. We want to watch this with you, the listeners. Jump on YouTube, catch this match with us. Jump into the chat box. We're excited. We're not all going to be in Rome. We've got so many folks from around the world that are Laziali. So we've thought this would be a fun way for us to come together, watch this one, and just have the conversation, suffer together, enjoy and embracing some hopefully some joyous moments together. So we're excited about that. But so that'll be a lot of fun. Tune in on Sunday, wherever you are around the world. As always, like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. If you're listening on audio platforms, whether that's Spotify, whether that's Apple, please subscribe, give us a like, give us those 5-star ratings. Goes a long way for us in growing this podcast so we can do more and more content. We're trying to grow our social channels, so Twitter, Instagram, TikTok for the kids. Jump on there, show us some love. We appreciate it. But more than anything, sempre